That night I got kicked out by Dad Johnny, Mom Lucy, and I died in a car crash in the pouring rain. Dad was with his sweetheart Susan at her daughter Bella's birthday party. Bella was wearing my ice blue dress and little crown, looking every bit like a princess. Meanwhile, Mom and I lay unclaimed in a pool of cold red. The police called Dad. "Are you Lucy's husband?" He said, "Sorry, we're divorced. Whatever happens to her is none of my business," and hung up. But Dad, Mom, and I really were gone. The rain quickly washed away our blood. The flashing red and blue lights looked like a magical rainbow in the night, almost beautiful. Mom's body was so twisted it wasn't recognizable. But she held me tightly, my expression calm. Many officers were around us for a while before moving us into their car. Mom covered my eyes with her hand, saying, "Annie, don't look." She didn't want me scared. "But Mom, we're ghosts now." "I'm not scared." I held her hand, looking up at her. "Mom, does Dad not want us anymore?" She looked down, tears staining her grayish face. I wiped them away, comforting her. "Mom, don't cry. I'll always be with you." She wiped her tears and finally smiled. I lifted a drawing I'd been holding when I died. "Mom, I want to give this to Dad." Tears welled up in her eyes again. "Annie, do you miss Dad? I'll take you to find him." Holding my hand, she led me back home. But at the door, we heard a happy birthday song inside. We entered to see Dad, Susan, and Bella at the table. They looked like a family, ready to blow out candles on a strawberry cake. I was stunned. Bella, in my dress and crown, eyes closed, made a wish with a blissful smile. Dad said gently, "Bella, let's blow out the candles together." I haven't heard him speak like that in a long time. Rage welled up inside me. Without realizing, I was in front of Bella. I reached for her crown, but my hand passed through it. I tried to grab her dress, her cake, her candles, frantically trying to push her away. Mom rushed over, hugging me. I cried in her arms. "That's my dress, my crown, my birthday, my dad. 3 days ago was supposed to be my 6th birthday. Dad would always buy me a princess dress and help me make a wish and blow out candles. I'd been looking forward to turning 6, becoming a first grader. But Dad didn't show up. Mom, holding a big gift bag, cautiously told me Dad had asked her to buy the dress. I knew they weren't on good terms, and it was from her. But it was okay. I was happy wearing the ice blue dress she got me, sitting at the table with my favorite foods and a strawberry cake she made. At 8, I lit the gold number 6 candle. By 10, way past my bedtime, Mom and the nanny reheated the food. She encouraged me to eat, though I could see she was sad. I ate to cheer her up, saving the cake for when Dad came back to blow out the candles together. But I eventually fell asleep in her arms, only to wake at their shouting. It was 1 a.m. I quietly peeked into the living room. Dad was still in his clothes from when he got home, sitting coldly. The cake was melting, the candle had fallen over. Today was Annie's birthday. "You were with Susan." Annie didn't blow out her candles, didn't eat her cake, Mom yelled at Dad. Annoyed, Dad replied, "It's just a birthday. So what if I missed it?" Bella wanted a dress, I took her shopping, what's the big deal? I clutched my pajamas tightly, upset. Birthdays were special, Dad always took me dress shopping. Mom declared angrily, "Johnny, you don't deserve Annie's cake or to be her father." She threw the ruined cake into the trash. Dad stood, laughing coldly. "Lucy, I'm Annie's father, you don't get to say what I deserve. Look at yourself, acting crazy. I'm scared our daughter will turn out like you." As they argued, I sneaked back to my room and picked up a picture I drew for Dad, wanting to give it to him so he'd be happy and stop fighting with Mom. Their fight scared me, fearing they'd separate. I didn't want to lose Mom or Dad. I wished we could go back to the happy times together. When I returned to the living room, Mom was holding divorce papers in front of Dad. "Johnny, let's divorce. He barely glanced at the cover, smirking. Lucy, threatening me with divorce? You think I'm scared of your family? Fine, let's do it. Panicking, I yelled, I don't want you to split up. Mom, tearful, came to hold me. I'm sorry, Annie. Mom has to leave Dad. Dad didn't look at me, just walked out. Take Annie to your family home. I'll have my lawyer contact you. The door slammed shut behind him with a loud bang, drowning out my cry, Dad. The next day, Mom packed up and took me away from home. After a 3-hour flight, we landed in her hometown in the south. Just when we got into the cab, a heavy downpour started. The wipers were on full, but the rain still covered the windshield. I felt tired and lay on my mom's lap, trying to sleep. Suddenly, a bright light pierced through my eyelids, and a blaring horn blared in my ears. Then came a loud crash. My mom held me tight as my body flew forward. Pain shot through my body from all directions. Soon, the pain disappeared, and I felt something slipping away very fast. I became very light. Dad. A child's voice snapped me back to the present. Bella grabbed my dad's arm and then took Susan's arm. The three of them blew out the candles on the birthday cake together. Just then, Dad's phone rang. Hello, are you Mrs. Lucy's husband? Mrs. Lucy, she's. No, we're divorced. Even if she died out there, it has nothing to do with me. Don't call me again. Dad hung up immediately, tossing the phone aside. Susan noticed and gently asked, Don't you want to check? What if something happened to Lucy? It's not easy raising a kid alone. Dad hesitated, reaching for the phone, but when he saw the divorce papers on the table, he pulled his hand back. No, she has nothing to do with me anymore. Bella quickly grabbed Dad's hand and handed him the cake knife. Here, Dad. Help me cut the cake. Watching Dad's gentle expression while cutting the cake for Bella made my heart ache suddenly. Why? Why did she have to take my dad away? The first time I noticed Bella was at our kindergarten sports day. The teacher said it's best if dads come because there's a parent-child competition. Dad's always busy with work, never attending my school events, so I made sure to tell Mom. That night, I heard Mom on the phone with Dad. Annie's been in kindergarten and you've never been to her school. She's graduating soon. Can't you spare one day for her? I pressed my ear against the phone and heard Dad's voice. It's not that I don't want to go. I'm on a business trip, and I can't help it. I'll definitely go next time. Next time? There won't be a next time. Mom angrily hung up. I tugged on Mom's sleeve, trying to smile brightly. It's okay, Mom. Don't be mad. I'll be happy with you there. Mom stroked my head and held me in her arms. You're Mommy's little angel, Annie. Honestly, I felt disappointed too, but I didn't want to see them fight. Dad must be really busy, I told myself. But the next day at school, I saw Dad in the stands. He was sitting beside Bella from the other class, chatting with her and patting her head. Next to Bella was a lady. She smiled watching Dad and Bella. Wasn't Dad on a business trip? Why was he at school, sitting next to Bella? Mom's grip on my hand suddenly tightened. I looked up and saw her staring at Dad. Deep down, I felt mad. Dad's a liar. He owes me an apology before I'll forgive him. Dad seemed to notice us staring. He turned and saw me and Mom, freezing. The lady beside him looked our way too, still smiling like she already knew Mom. Then the teacher called me to perform in the opening ceremony. Mom stopped looking at Dad and took me to the backstage area. That lady also brought Bella backstage. Walking over to us, she smiled at Mom. Sorry, I couldn't make it, so I asked Johnny for help. But then I managed to come. I hope you don't blame Johnny. Mom's face darkened, ignoring her. She might be smiling, but I didn't like her at all. I felt Dad being with Bella had something to do with her. With a glare, Bella stared me down. I glared back, hating her for taking my dad. In the next performance, Bella and I were on stage together. During a formation change, Bella ended up behind me, even though that wasn't her spot. I barely had time to think when she shoved me hard from behind. I was at the edge of the stage, moving, and I couldn't keep my balance. I fell straight off. My foot hurt so bad, I couldn't move, and I cried loudly. Both Mom and Dad rushed over. I clung to Dad's sleeve, telling him, "Dad, Bella pushed me." Dad glanced at the stage and suddenly put me down to run up there. I saw Bella had fallen too, and her mom was crying, begging Dad to help Bella. Dad picked Bella up and ran out. I watched his rushed silhouette and stopped crying. Both of us got sent to the hospital. I had a sprained ankle, and Mom was the only one who stayed with me. Where was Dad? Why did he have to look after Bella? I wanted to see Dad. It wasn't until we left the hospital and got home that Dad came back. I really wanted to ask why he helped Bella and why he lied to me. But then I heard him and Mom arguing again. "Johnny, didn't you say you were on a business trip? Susan's alone, working and raising a kid. It's not easy. I was just helping her out. What does her struggling have to do with you? Do you even know you're Annie's dad? Annie's almost graduating from kindergarten, yet you don't even know where she goes. Lucy, please, don't be unreasonable. Susan always speaks so highly of you. Get out." How about asking why her daughter pushed Annie off the stage? But Bella said she fell because Annie bumped her. Bella wouldn't lie. You don't believe your own daughter? Fine, I'll call the school and check the cameras to see what these two are up to. Mom picked up the phone to call, but Dad snatched it, smashing it on the floor. "Lucy, if you're mad, take it out on me. Bella's just a kid. She's gentle and wouldn't push Annie." Mom was furious. I saw her fingers shaking. "Johnny, I don't get it. Is that woman worth breaking up a family over? And for her, you'd hurt your own daughter?" Wham! Dad slapped Mom. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Mom looked so hurt. Dad's changed. Why would he do that? "Lucy, if I remember right, you're the one who came between me and Susan." I ran over to Mom, crying. She held me tight and covered my ears, but I still heard what she was saying. "Johnny, you made your choice back then. If I'm your choice, then she's the other woman. You might not want to be a father, but I won't let Annie get hurt. This isn't over." After saying that, Mom picked me up and headed upstairs. She cried for a long time that night. I didn't know what other woman meant, but I knew that because of Bella and her mom, Dad changed. I hated them. The next day, Mom took me to school and checked the surveillance footage. It clearly showed Bella pushing me. Mom told the principal, "Principal, I hope you take this seriously." If it had been her head that got hurt, it would have been a different story. Bella needs to admit her mistake and apologize to my daughter. Then Dad showed up with Bella's mom. Dad greeted the principal. "Hi, Principal. I'm Annie's dad." Bella's mom, with teary eyes, said, "Sorry, Principal. Bella also fell yesterday. Once she gets better, I will have a good talk with her." I felt a surge of emotion. Finally, Dad was here to back me up, but then he defended Bella. "Bella's mom, don't worry. Kids fooling around isn't a big deal. Let's just drop this, Principal." I felt heartbroken. Why wasn't Dad on my side? I cried. Bella pushed me. Dad suddenly snapped at me, "Annie, don't be so childish." Dad had never yelled at me before. I hadn't done anything wrong. I felt so hurt and cried even more. "Johnny, why are you letting Annie be wronged?" Mom said, feeling pained. Bella's mom came over and held my hand. "Annie, I'm sorry. Susan apologizes on behalf of Bella, okay? That annoying lady. I shook off her hand and didn't want to talk to her. Dad took Bella's mom away, I said, no apology needed, let's just leave it. And with that, he took Bella's mom and left the principal's office. After that, Dad rarely came home. It seemed like Mom started to dislike Dad too, and I was worried they'd split up. I tried to be good, thinking it would make them happy again. But in the end, they broke up. As a spirit, I watched Dad, Susan, and Bella have cake together, laughing and chatting as if Mom and I never existed, like they were the real family. That's when I understood what other woman meant. Susan took Dad away. Anger welled up inside me. That's not my real dad. I threw the painting I had been holding to the ground. Then I held Mom's hand tightly. Mom, I don't want Dad anymore. Mom stroked my head and smiled, but I saw the tears in her eyes. Every day, I stayed with Mom in the house, sensing her sadness. Sometimes, she cried in secret when she thought I wasn't watching. I didn't know why Mom stayed in such a sad place. All I knew was that I had to stay with her. One day, Dad picked up a painting of mine from the table and stared at it for a long time. The big heart I drew now seemed glaring. His fingers traced over the lower right corner where I had just learned to write my name, all messy like. The housekeeper came over and said, I found it on the ground. Should I toss it out? Dad handed the painting back to her. Just keep it on my desk in the study. He took out his phone and called Mom's number. It rang, but no one picked up. He tried calling several more times throughout the day, but got the same result. For days, he'd pick up his phone and call Mom at different times. One time, he drank a lot late at night, endlessly calling Mom. Eventually, he threw the phone to the ground. Lucy, you're so heartless, he muttered. Susan stood behind him, frowning, but then put on a smile when she faced him. Johnny, if you're worried about Lucy, why not go check on them at the old house? I was used to her mood swings. Dad, seeming drunk, mumbled, I'm not going to that haunted place. Never. I asked Mom, does Dad not like Grandpa? I remember Grandpa was strict but always kind to me when he was alive. Mom patted my head and said, maybe. Grandpa was strict with Dad. I didn't quite understand. Just then, Dad's phone rang. It showed Mom's name. He quickly answered, only to hear a man's voice. Johnny. Get back here now. The man's yelling boomed through the phone. I recognized the voice. It was Uncle Larry's. I saw him a few times at Grandpa's. He'd secretly give me candy. Mom said Larry was her good friend. Where's Lucy? Let me talk to her, Dad asked, gripping the phone tightly. There was a long silence, then quiet sobs. Lucy and Annie died in a car accident. Dad froze, staring at his phone, bringing it closer. No way. You're lying. You bastard. If I had known, I wouldn't have let Lucy return to you. Echoed the angry voice. Dad kept muttering to himself, it can't be. She was fine the other day. You're lying, you're lying. After hanging up, he didn't move, stuck there, unbelieving that Mom and I were gone. Quickly, he grabbed his coat, ran out, and jumped in a cab to the airport. Mom took me with Dad to the old house. Since Grandpa passed, only a few old servants stayed there. With mourning flags hanging at the entrance, Dad stood outside, saw our names above, and crumbled to the ground. Larry came out, saw Dad, and punched him, knocking him down. Punches rained on Dad's face. His face turned pale, blood trickled from his mouth and face. But he didn't fight back, just let Larry hit him. How could you promise us that way back then? Do you think you did right by Lucy's family? The police told me they called you. And you didn't care. You beast, why are you here now? Dad seemed lost, muttering to himself, impossible, impossible. Just a few days ago, everything was fine. Annie even drew me a picture. Hearing him, Larry got even angrier and dragged him outside. He pulled Dad into the main hall, throwing him down in front of the pictures of Mom and me. Surrounding us were white flowers, and the black and white photo of Mom and me was right in the center. I tugged at Mom's hand and said, "Mom, I don't like it here. It's just black and white. Annie likes colorful flowers." Mom crouched down, hugging me tightly. "Annie, sweetie, Mom will take you to a place full of flowers." Seeing our pictures, Dad seemed to finally understand. He lunged at the photos, crying his heart out. Larry pried his arms away and put the photos of me and Mom back in place. "Get your filthy hands off. Didn't you divorce Lucy? Didn't you abandon your daughter? Who are you pretending for here? They're nothing to you now." Dad was sobbing uncontrollably, shaking his head desperately. "I didn't sign. I haven't signed anything. I'm still Lucy's husband, I'm still Annie's dad." Larry slapped Dad across the face, grabbing his collar and pulling him off the ground. "And you think you deserve this? They've been gone for 7 days, and you just got here. When their bodies were lying unclaimed in the morgue, where were you?" Finally, Larry and Dad both cried for a long time in front of mine and Mom's shrine. Watching Dad sobbing, calling out my name, I felt nothing inside. I looked at Mom, wondering if she felt the same way. Larry never forgave Dad in the end. He took Mom's belongings and only handed Dad a notebook. I glanced up at Mom, and she smiled. That was my diary. March 28th, today, Susan came to see me. She asked for $500,000. She said if I give her $500,000, she'd leave Johnny willingly. I'm not sure what to do. I've liked Johnny for so long, and her offer is tempting. April 1st, I gave Susan a card with $500,000 on it. If she's asking for money, she probably doesn't really love Johnny. I don't know if Johnny will have me, but making a woman who doesn't love him go away is worth it. I wrote another love letter to Johnny when school was over. But I forgot today is April Fool's Day. Who confesses on April Fools? He might think I'm joking. June 5th, we took graduation photos today, and I finally saw Johnny again. Heard he's been busy job hunting and hasn't been at school for a while. Not sure if he saw my love letter. But I felt his gaze on me every now and then. Could he like me too? June 13th, today is a good day. Johnny accepted my confession. I was so happy when I got his message that I jumped off my bed. "Johnny, from today on, you're under Lucy's protection." I asked him to lunch, and he agreed. Being able to see him is so nice, only. He ate in a hurry, then rushed to an interview. Seeing him work so hard breaks my heart. I'm going to see Dad tonight, to openly show our relationship, and ask him to give Johnny a job at the company. December 15th, Dad is too much. Johnny and I are getting married next month, yet he won't give Johnny time off. But Dad is impressed with Johnny's performance at the company. Of course, my man wouldn't be a slouch. I told Dad he could hand the company over to Johnny someday. Dad immediately opposed, saying Johnny has a lot to learn and needs more observation. Old stubborn, Johnny's marrying me. What's there not to trust? I'll persuade him slowly. I believe in Johnny. January 26th, today, I married Johnny. It's the happiest day of my life. From now on, Johnny is my husband. Johnny, rest assured, I'll be good to you forever. You walk in the light of long starlit trails, and the moment you arrived, I lost my senses. From now on, what you like is what I like. I'll try everything that interests you. Seeing you happy will be my lifelong goal. Dad clutched Mom's diary, flipping through it again and again. Sometimes he was crying, other times laughing like a madman. I asked Mom if her diary was filled with sadness. She smiled and shook her head, saying it recorded her happiest times. She was just too naive then. I didn't understand, if they were happy memories, why did Dad cry? Whatever, it doesn't matter to me now. Since returning to the old house, I found Mom a lot calmer, always sporting a smile. Maybe, like me, she doesn't care about Dad anymore. I have a feeling we're leaving soon. Once Dad finished our funerals, he took that diary and our photos and left home. Susan and Bella waited at the door. When Susan saw Dad, she rushed to support his arm. "Johnny, what's wrong? What happened?" Dad yanked his arm away and stormed past, clutching Mom and my photos. Susan was knocked to the ground but still smiled. Bella, wearing my dress, ran up and angrily pushed Dad. But he ignored her, heading straight to the living room. Bella shouted, "Dad, why did you push my mom? You're mean. I'm not your dad. Don't call me that. Get out of my house." Dad didn't even glance at them. Susan slowly rose, smoothing her dress and looking at Dad calmly. "Johnny, changing your tune all of a sudden? It was you who insisted on helping us. I didn't cling to you. So, are you back with Lucy again?" Dad took out our photos, carefully wiping them, and placed them in the middle, choking out, "There's no going back. They're gone. They'll never return." Susan paused, then laughed. "Johnny, you brought this on yourself, don't blame others." Dad's eyes were bloodshot, gripping Susan's arm, struggling to respond. Because Susan was right, he neglected me and Mom. "So, you regret it?" "You can regret, but you've got to pay for our mental distress, or we're not leaving." "So you were all about the money. When you sold me out for 500 grand, remember? You even told me Lucy made you break up with me." Susan wasn't afraid of her dad one bit. She shook off his hand. "That's right. I felt I asked for too little back then, considering she was a big deal in the company. Should have gone for $1 million, maybe $2 million. Dad slapped Susan across the face. "Susan. You think everyone trades love for cash like you? I really cared about Lucy." Susan wasn't backing down either. She slapped him back and sneered. "Johnny, stop acting so noble. You married Lucy 'cause of her family's business, didn't you? Now you're living the dream. Lucy's gone, and you've got her fortune. Stop pretending to be some saint." Dad slumped into a chair, holding his head in his hands, utterly miserable. "I admit, I did want Lucy's family riches at first. But then, being with her, she was so considerate, always looking out for me. She really loved me." Susan coldly replied, "Cut it out. Late love's worth less than dirt. I just played some tricks, and you still ditched Lucy." Dad seemed to ignore her, muttering to himself, Lucy, she really loved me. Get out. All of you, get out." Susan grabbed Bella's hand and headed upstairs. They looted the house, taking Mom's jewelry, bags, clothes, and shoes. Anything valuable went into the suitcase. Bella even took my princess dress and all the precious gifts Grandpa had given over the years. Meanwhile, Dad was drinking himself into oblivion in the living room. I asked Mom what we'd do. She smiled and beckoned to me, "Annie, this place isn't for us anymore. Let's go, I'll take you to a land full of flowers." I nodded happily, suddenly feeling lighter. I ran a bit, caught Mom's hand, and we walked outside. There was a wide river, its surface shimmering like a galaxy. Both riverbanks were covered with red flowers, like a sea of red from afar. It was beautiful. Mom held my hand as we crossed a bridge. On the other side, an old lady was giving soup to those who crossed. We each took a bowl. Mom patted my head and said, "Annie, I hope I can still be your mom in the next life." I gave Mom a big smile. Annie will always be Mom's child. I raised my bowl and clinked it with hers. Then Dad's voice suddenly echoed from across the river. "Lucy. Annie. Wait for me." We looked back and saw Dad waving from the other side. Mom and I exchanged a knowing smile and drank the soup together. "Goodbye, Dad, in this life. We won't meet in the next."